take the roll.
Pack,
Here.
Herman,
Here.
Allison Osby, here. Palmieri,
Here.
Mugrower,
Here.
Rousey,
Here.
Cummings,
Here.
present 7.
Would you all please stand while Councilmember Peck leads us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
As we gather tonight, we are grateful for the good things that have come to this city. May our decisions always be ones that are for the well-being of all whom we govern.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may all take a seat, except our 2 students. We have a certificate for you. Now, if you want to turn and face the audience and that sort of that corner, I'm going to ask Harley a couple of things: your name, your age, where you go to school, and since it's almost summer vacation, what are you looking forward to doing this summer?
My name's Isaac. I go to Trinity Lutheran School in Oshkosh. What I look forward to doing this summer is camping and fishing and spending time with my family and friends.
Sounds great. And now your turn.
My name is Harley. I go to Trinity Lutheran School in Oshkosh, and what I'm looking forward to this summer is going to the Dells and fishing and hunting.
Sounds like great summers. And I mixed up your certificates. So you can stay and watch the meeting or outside and enjoy the nice warm weather. Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda is a proclamation, and Shirley, would you come forward, please? Okay, we've done this before, so we have to face the camera. Whereas National History Preservation Month has been observed every May since 1973, and whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, urban, rural, and everywhere in between, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in preserving the complex history of the American experience, and whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for revitalizing neighborhoods, encouraging heritage and cultural tourism, enhancing property values, fostering local pride, and maintain community character, where Oshkosh has 8 nationally recognized historic districts, 1 historic site, Riverside Cemetery, and individually listed historic places. Now therefore I, Stephen Cummings, Mayor of the City of Oshkosh, do proclaim May 2018 as Historic Preservation Month and call upon the people of Oshkosh to join citizens across the United States in recognizing and in participating in this special observance. And Shirley Maddox, you are Chair of the Landmarks Commission, amongst other things, so would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. I was interviewed this morning by someone from Madison, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "I can't believe all that's going on in Oshkosh for historic preservation." So that was a good way to start off this interview. I mean, we had 2 buildings this year on the National Register, the Eagles Club and then the Wheatgrass Company. 2 very diverse buildings. One building, everybody would say it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, and the other you'd say it was a factory, tear it down. But they both have our history, and they both have potential, and they're both going to be put to wonderful uses. And the economic impact has been unbelievable in Oshkosh. And so I'd like to salute the developers at this time who have taken advantage of all they can to preserve the building as they restore it and then give it a whole new life, do something different. But it's still there, and the stories that go back with it are still there. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the city of Oshkosh, who is supporting historic preservation.
Thank you, Shirley. One thing you did not mention, that preserving our historic buildings is one of the greenest things a community can do, because our history is not going to a landfill. It's being recycled. You've taught me well. Next on the agenda is a public hearing, which I have to read 3 times before we take a vote. But before I begin, James Robbie, would you have a few things to say about this?
Yes, for item number 1, resolution 18-248, I would like to make a slight correction to the estimates that were prepared by staff for properties at 1512, 1513, and 1520 Roosevelt Avenue. Staff inadvertently included an estimated sidewalk assessment of $468.75. There is not sidewalk at these locations, so there would not be any sidewalk squares to be replaced as a part of the project. So we would like to delete that sidewalk estimate and reduce those estimates by $468.75 for those 3 properties.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to take any further action, Lynn, or can we just proceed with reading them 3 times? Because they'll be on the agenda next time for
No.
approval.
No,
Okay.
these,
This
You're
is the,
approving it tonight.
so this just, my recommendation would be to adopt as amended by
Okay.
staff.
Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Resolution 18-248, approve final resolution for special assessments for pavement, aprons, we deleted sidewalk and utilities relating to contract number 18-12, Columbia Avenue, Algoma Boulevard to Vinland Street, Roosevelt Avenue, Hamilton Street to the end of cul-de-sac east of Crane Street, Minerva Street dead end south of Columbia Avenue to Linwood Avenue. Second reading, Resolution 18-248, approve final resolution for special assessments for pavement, aprons, sidewalk has been deleted, and utilities relating to contract number 18-12, Columbia Avenue, Algoma Boulevard to Vinland Street, Roosevelt Avenue, Hamilton Street to the end of cul-de-sac of Crane Street, Minerva Street dead end south of Columbia Avenue to Linwood Avenue. Third and final reading, approve final resolution for special assessments for pavement, aprons, sidewalk, deleted, and utilities relating to contract number 18-12, Columbia Avenue, Algoma Boulevard to Vinland Street, Roosevelt Avenue, Hamilton Street to end of cul-de-sac east of Crane Street, and C, Minerva Street, dead end south of Columbia Avenue to Linwood Avenue. Pam, did anyone from the public wish to speak to this?
No one is registered.
All right, I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilman Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose an amendment to just, to add approved final resolution as submitted by Pam. Help me out with the language here, just so we codify and memorialize the changes that Mr. Robbie
I have,
How about
suggested.
just to adopt the resolution with the attachments as amended by the
Okay.
Public Works Director?
Okay. So then I would, to amend it to approve the final resolution for special assessments for pavement, and then at the end of this, as amended by staff.
I'll second that.
Would you please take the roll?
Peck,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Now, I need a motion to vote on as amended.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Please take the roll.
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Resolution 18-249, approve final resolution for special assessments for storm sewer laterals relating to contract number 18-20 and contract number 18-04, various locations. Second reading, Resolution 18-249, approve final resolution for special assessments for storm sewer laterals relating to contract number 18-20 and contract number 18-04, various locations. Third and final reading, Resolution 18-249, approve final resolution for special assessments for storm sewer laterals relating to contract number 18-20 and contract number 18-04, various locations. Pam,
I have no one registered.
bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Please take the roll.
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Now we move to citizen statements to council. And Pam, has anyone registered to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Caroline Pansky, 1069 West 9th Avenue.
Citizens are to address council only. Statements are limited to 5 minutes, must address items that are not listed on the council meeting agenda, are limited to issues that have an impact on the city of Oshkosh, and the common council may address at a future meeting and must not include endorsements of any candidates or other electioneering. You're on.
All right. I have just a few things, but my first issue this evening is the application approval process for boards and commissions. I personally applied for an opening about a month ago. I haven't heard anything. I have received complaints in the past regarding other such applications, and I ran into a citizen that I served on a board and committee with previously, and he had stated he had a similar issue with another board and committee. He's been waiting for about a year. So just thinking about that, I don't know if there's anything that you can do where these applications would go to the council and then it would be brought forward by more than one person to be approved quicker, or if there's a way to notify citizens if they are not going to be chosen so that they're not just waiting around for something that they were willing to do. You know, a year is a long time to wait. Things could change very quickly in a year, so I think there's some room for improvement there as well. Mr. Roloff, I brought this issue up to you at an event last year, but there are still no bike racks at the Leach Amphitheater. I rode my bike over there on Saturday as a participant in the Bike Osh event, and I stopped for the Unity in the Community event. And I'm sure most of you saw, if you were there, that the bikes were just kind of lined up along the fence. Probably not the best place for those. And speaking of bikes, had an issue coming home from Oshkosh West this evening. In the roundabouts, people are not yielding to pedestrians in these crosswalks. It is a state law that vehicles must yield to pedestrians in the crosswalks, whether they are marked, whether it's just a sidewalk. We need to slow down. This is an issue. Bikes are out. We've already had a few tragic accidents, and that is far too many already in this season. I don't know if there's room for law enforcement to step up. I know that they would rather be giving warnings and issuing citations than responding to an accident. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's it?
No one else is registered.
Next, we have the consent agenda items. And these items are a routine administrative nature that are voted on by the council in a single roll call vote. Staff recommends approval of all items. Any member of the public or common council may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. Pam, did anyone register to speak?
No one is registered.
All right, I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Discussion?
Second.
Councilmember Peck.
Excuse me, regarding item 18261, Mr. Taves? Now, I do know that this is related to the advertising and sale of the bonds. Obviously, we won't know what the interest rate will be until the bonds are actually bid upon and awarded. But what do you foresee as, based on, kind of where we were, and what do you kind of forecast with where we're at? Because we have seen an uptick in fixed income yields.
Correct. So we had 3 issues, we actually had 5 issues last year. This year, we're only issuing 3, 2 general obligation and a stormwater. So just by way of comparison, the 20-year GO bonds that the city sold last year had an interest rate of 2.66. For planning purposes, I'm assuming that's going to be in the low 3s, so about a 0.5% higher. The general obligation notes, which are the shorter 10-year term, those had a actual interest rate of 1.89. I'm expecting that's going to be more in the range of about 2.75. We're actually seeing a larger increase in the shorter term borrowing because it's the short term interest rates that have gone up more than the longer term interest rates. And then lastly, on the stormwater bonds, which carry a higher interest rate than your general obligation, we were at just over 3% last year, and we would expect to be more in the range of about 3.5. So as you noted, interest rates have gone up. One positive thing in the municipal markets is that due to some of the federal tax law changes, there was a lot of issuance in the market in December with people trying to take advantage of rules that have now been phased out. So as a result, municipal bond supply is down this year, so that demand is actually helping to probably offset what would otherwise be even a higher interest rate. But long story short, interest rates will definitely be higher than the city's been accustomed to over the past couple of years.
And with that demand market, do you anticipate still having the bond premium?
We are still seeing premium bids on bonds, even though interest rates have gone up. If you look at it over a 20 or 30-year period of time, interest rates are still lower than the average, and so investors still like to see those 4% and 5% coupons on municipal bonds, and the effective rate is still lower than that. So yes, we would expect that for at least the foreseeable future, that premium bids will be likely what you'll receive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions on Resolution 18-255, so Mr. Mauer. And this is for the repaving of the tennis courts at Menominee Park, just looking for the time frame.
Sure. Once the bid is awarded and the construction is planned to begin by the end of May, once we have everything signed and insurance in place. And so with the construction beginning in May, we're looking at finishing the project by September 1st is our goal. So for the summer, the courts will be out of commission. But based on the input we've received from the tennis court users, they haven't been used much because of their condition.
Correct. Okay, and then the other is Resolution 18-262, and I know there are some people here from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. It's for the Cabela's National Walleye Tour, and to my understanding, that was scheduled for somewhere in Minnesota, and they couldn't make it happen, if you will, because of the weather. And they came to Oshkosh very quickly, and we accommodated their request even quicker. So,
Yes, I'll start, and I can turn it over to Jody and Kathy if they have something to add. But I think we were notified about 14 days ago roughly that due to the flooding up in Minnesota, I think it was Red Wing, Minnesota is where this tournament was going to be held. They were not allowed to access the water, and the tournament decided to look at an alternate site. They were back here in 2016, and I think they were very happy with the accommodations and how everything went. So working with the CVB staff and Kathy, they rallied, and I think within about 24 or 48 hours, we were able to give them a yes. But it is on your council agenda for approval tonight. But Jody, if you'd like to add some too.
We were very happy that they wanted to come back by us. We were happy to provide everything that they were asking for. We did do some changes with the vendor location to clear up the walkway, and we don't think there's going to be any problems for the community or the city participants of Oshkosh.
And just to give you an idea, and the residents, I believe it's 120 boats are involved in the tournament. So you're looking at 240 fishermen, or fisher people. And they actually started coming in last week to do pre-fishing. I've seen boats over the last 10 days that are out there pre-fishing. So it's a lot of gas sales, hotel sales, everything for the community, so.
Congratulations, guys from Event City. You pulled another one off, so great job. Mr. Herman?
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to actually give them kudos because it is Tourism Week also. But my question is actually resolution, it deals with Resolution 250. Mr. Robbie, is this one of the contracts that we actually have to bid out and get competitive bids by other organizations besides just using AECom for the last 35 years in the city?
It does not specifically need to be bid out.
Okay.
Their response time and their location here saves us significant amounts on contractor downtime costs. Because their office is right here, they can respond at a moment's notice rather than having to wait 30 minutes to an hour. With contractor crews that cost several $1,000s per hour, their proximity and quick response time saves us significantly on the construction costs and potential change orders from the construction cost. They've also been instrumental in securing very favorable pricing from Waste Management for us to be able to dispose of this material. So the savings that we've had from Waste Management far exceed the cost of this contract that they've been able to procure for us.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're giving everybody equal opportunities because we've been using the same companies over and over and over, whether it's for park reconstruction or street reconstruction or building reconstruction. It seems to be that we use the same 4 or 5 contractors all the time. So I just wanted to know, make sure that we're getting a good deal with using this current company. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
Deputy Mayor Pro Mary.
Thank you, Mayor. Ray, also on 255 and 262. So 255, just a question about, so 269,000 for the asphalt, and that's for 3 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts, right?
Correct. Thank you for bringing that up. We have worked closely with both the pickleball community as well as the tennis community. We've had a number of meetings and in discussions, and the Parks Board and the councils probably have heard the pickleball in the area has really been a popular sport. So with our reconstruction here, we've pulled the 2 groups together, and they both supported reducing the number of tennis courts so that we could get 4 pickleball courts. So we are going from 5 tennis courts down to 3, but we're adding the 4 pickleball courts. It's not only reconstructing the existing court surface, but it's new nets, new net posts, and all the fencing will be replaced as well.
And I guess just for general public then, to follow up on that, could you just kind of maybe briefly explain the difference between a tennis court and a pickleball court in terms of the
Size-wise?
facility itself?
Sure. Just to give you an idea, roughly on 1 tennis court, we're able to get 4 pickleball courts. It's a little bit larger than 1 court. But what we've done is increase the spacing between the tennis courts as well. So basically on 1 tennis court, we get 4 pickleball courts. And we separate, they're 2 and 2. We separate those by about a 4-foot fence, I believe, to keep the balls within the court itself. So that gives you an idea on the size. If you're not familiar with pickleball, I would suggest looking at the internet because
Sure.
it is a very popular sport. The YMCA has been part of our user group meeting because their facilities, indoor facilities, are heavily used. And we are also working with both of those groups. They're working to set up an account at the Community Foundation to help with future maintenance on tennis and pickleball courts. They have already started some fundraising, so you might hear about that as well. That was one thing we talked about back at budget time to see if we couldn't reach out to the tennis community as well as pickleball to help fund the project, or what I wanted to do was get a maintenance fund set up so that we can keep the courts in better operating condition for over the period of time.
Sure. Thanks for that explanation. Not everybody knows that it's 4 pickleball courts can sit on 1 tennis
Yes.
court side. And then on 262, just on the Menominee Park Cabela's Walleye Tournament, pretty exciting news. Glad we could work them at the last minute, accommodate them. But I did have a question about the 120 boats. It looks like we have no cost estimates for extraordinary services for that. If we have 120 boats coming in for that, do they close the boat launch for that event? And if so, is there any kind of compensation at all?
We had that discussion with both the CVB and the tournament organizers, and they can close the boat launch, which essentially they do is they rent out the boat launch for $500 per day. They chose not to do that. They're gonna make each of their boats pay the $5 per day. So in my mind, we're getting a little extra dollars from those boat launch fees. Plus, our rangers will then continue to go through the launch and monitor the parking. So they chose not to. When somebody does buy out the launch, we just tell our rangers to stay out of the lot. It's pretty much purchased by that group. So that will be paid for and a little bit more than the $500 per day.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Muglauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second actually Council Member Herman's comments on 250 with AECom and the service agreements. I can appreciate the history we have with them and the work that they do for us, the quality work that they do, but I can't see on a piece of paper that what the price that they're giving us is a competitive bid and a competitive price in the marketplace. And I understand that there are costs outside of the contracts for downtime, and they are significant. But we've got to find a way to bid this out, to RFP this some way, somehow, so we know that we're getting the best bang for our dollars for the citizens of Oshkosh. And also then on 262, just actually seconding Ms. Palmieri's and Mr. Herman's comments as well. Thank you to the CVB and Parks Department, and obviously Special Events too, for getting that thing done so quickly. Great work on that. It's a good event for the city. Lots of tourists coming to town at a great time, and good work. So congratulations on that. That's all I have.
If there's no further discussion, would you please take the roll?
Heck.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Muglauer.
Aye.
Rousey.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
We have now pending ordinances. The first is ordinance 18-265, remove parking on west side of the street and designate bike lanes on North Main Street from Murdoch Avenue to Snell Road. Pam?
No one is registered.
I will bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Heck.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Muglauer.
Aye.
Rousey.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Ordinance 18-266, designate bike lanes on Smith Avenue from Vinland to Jackson Street, and permit Sherrills to be used from Jackson to North Main Street. No parking removal. Closed parens. Did anyone sign up?
No one is registered.
Bring it back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilman Herman?
I just have a question. Is Mr. Collins here by chance?
No.
Okay. When this was approved, I don't believe the Casey's Convenience Store was going to be part of this discussion. And now it looks like we're going to have a convenience store on the corner of Jackson and where the bike lanes are going to be part of that. And so I'm a little concerned about the added traffic on Smith Avenue in Jackson with bike traffic. I know we're not designating lanes in that section, it's Sherrills, but just kind of curious if it should maybe get a second look.
Anytime we take a look at these types of designations, we have to take a look at the long-term land uses. So even though Casey's in this case wasn't specifically known, excuse me, we do take the zoning into consideration so that we plan accordingly, because today it's Casey's, next year it could be.
Sure. I'm just thinking it's going to be much busier in that intersection area than it previously was when it was going to be designated, you know.
Yeah, originally this was going to be proposed.
Bike lanes all the way
It was going to be
from-
bike lanes
yeah.
all the way, and I think the residents kind of chimed in and said, we're a little skittish about that, so I think that's why Bike and Ped went with Sherrills.
I think they didn't want to lose the parking because of the residential area in that, so.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as they took a look at it or that was addressed a little bit, then I'm okay with it.
I see no further discussion. Would you please take the roll?
Heck.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried seven.
Ordinance 18-267, approve zone change from institutional, in parens I, close parens, to single-family residential 9, parens SR-9, close parens, vacant property, 400 block Monroe Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Pam?
Yes, Gerald Jacklin, 408 Monroe Street.
Well, you just said my name and address. Should I say it again? Joel Jacklin, 408 Monroe Street. I'm mostly here if there's a question or two, but I'll give a quick summary of what my wife and our goals are for this lot and the zone change. We're in the process of purchasing this land from, we'll call it St. Mary's Church, but now it's called Most Blessed Sacrament. So I have been in contact for quite some time with Deacon Rick over there, and he's in favor of this zone change as well. My wife and I are planning on building a nice fence. Again, it's right fairly close to the church there, so it's next to the St. Mary's parking lot. We're going to spruce up the area, landscaping, trees. That area is very close to the Washington Street upgrade, so it'll be in kind of like in sync with that as well. They're doing a lot of tree work around there, which is nice, up and down those new paved streets. So in summary, we plan on building a single-story house. We purchased the next lot last year, 414, that's called 414 Monroe. And those lots are rather small, so we plan on building a single-story house similar to the houses in the neighborhood. And it would span both lots, and we would make it attractive to the neighborhood to the extent of matching our brick with the church color brick. So the bottom line is, I hope this gets passed. It would probably, not probably, but I think it would look better in that neighborhood. That house that we tore down last year was a real eyesore, so we've already started with that. Okay, that's all I have.
Just one question, or not one question, but, thank you for investing in an older neighborhood in the city. We appreciate it a great deal.
Okay. Any other questions? That's it?
I will bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby. Aye. Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried seven.
Ordinance 18-268, approve zone change from single-family residential extraterritorial district, in parens R-1 ETZ, close parens, and general agricultural extraterritorial district, parens A-2 ETZ, close parens, to light agricultural extraterritorial district, parens A-1 ETZ, property located west of 3097 Clairville Road in the town of Algoma, in parens, extraterritorial zoning committee recommends approval. Pam,
No one is registered.
bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please take the roll.
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby. Aye. Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried seven.
We have new ordinances. The first two, there will be no formal action taken at this meeting. The first is ordinance -18-269, approve zone change from suburban mixed use, in parens SMU, close parens, to suburban mixed use district with planned development overlay, parens SMU-PD, close parens 2308 Jackson Street, 2316 Jackson Street, 2324 Jackson Street. Planned Commission recommends approval. Pam, did anyone register to speak to this, even though there'll be no formal action?
Yes, Ryan Swanson, 6695 Meadowbrook, Roscoe, Illinois.
Thank you, Your Honor and council members. My name is Ryan Swanson. I'm the engineer and project manager working on the project. I'm here just to answer any questions. I understand there's no decision tonight, but happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Councilman Herman.
Thank you. I listened to the Plan Commission meeting the other night on cable access. There was some discussion about the back of the property and fencing. There was some discussion that there was going to be some dialogue between the neighbors and your corporation, your company. Has that taken place, or has there been any discussion on that fencing issue that was a concern?
No, the intent would be to leave the fencing in. If there's, what I recalled from the meeting, if there's something that's in disrepair, because I think a lot of those encroach on the
Right.
parcel. So if there's something that's needing an issue, as we work through staff on our final approvals, we can work on that.
Okay.
That's what I would
Okay.
intend.
And then there were quite a few, I know the Plan Commission had put quite a few requirements out there, no issues on your end eventually?
No,
Okay.
correct. Obviously, we've made attempts.
Some give and
to-
take.
Yeah, and the one condition, that 8-foot fence, that's no problem at all.
Okay, very good. That's my concern with the neighborhoods, so thank you.
Move on to ordinance 18-270, consolidation of Grand Opera House Advisory Board and Landmarks Commission. Pam?
No one is registered.
Move on to ordinance 18-271, repeal and recreate section 25-62 sidewalk cafe. Parens, applicant requests waiving the rules and adopting on first reading.
No one is registered.
No one is registered. Councilman Peck.
I would like to make a motion to waive the rules and adopt 18271 on first reading.
I need a second.
Second?
Discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Looks like
What?
Ms. Nyforth might.
If anybody has any questions, I'm happy.
They're doing the waiver
Oh,
first.
Sure, sure.
Oh, sorry.
Would you please take the roll?
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Krausy,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Now, ordinance 18-271, repeal and recreate section 25-62 sidewalk cafe. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. And you're
If
here to answer any questions.
If anybody has any questions, we did a newsletter article a few weeks about this, and then obviously you have the memo. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Mr. Peck?
Oh, no,
Okay. Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thanks, Mayor. So I just had a couple of questions regarding clarifying on, there's one section where we talk about providing the photographs, drawings, or manufacturer's brochures for any proposed tables, chairs, amenities, this kind of thing. So, I mean, is there like a concern that inappropriate items would be placed out there, like folding lawn chairs or something? Or what really does that serve?
You know, just to make sure they'd be safe being in the right of way, make sure there's no advertising on it that might be advertising a certain brand, not specific to the business, maybe making sure they meet ADA compliance. So just to make sure that it's be sturdy enough to be in the right of way and not something that will be easily moved around and be flying down the street on a windy day or something like that.
So no, like Corona umbrellas, that kind of thing?
Yep, and that language is in the code too.
Sure, okay. And then the only other thing I just want to clarify is, so we talk about in here how much clearance there needs to be to maintain those ADA passages, as well as an extra 2-foot, and that only, I guess, it appears that this would really only apply to those places in which the sidewalk is wide enough to accommodate that. Do we have an idea of how many or how much area that covers? Is it a small percentage or a larger percentage that actually would be able to benefit from this option?
It's definitely unique areas, you know, that would benefit. Along Main Street, when we did the reconstruction, it was specifically built, you know, to be able to have these types of uses. And then in this case where the granary is also interested in it, you know, the way that the right-of-way is right next to their building, it does have extra area. As far as an analysis of how many of our sidewalks in the city, in the certain districts that we've identified, we don't have a percentage, but it will have to, you know, they'll have to come forward to the city, and we'll work with Public Works staff to look at the sidewalk, look at the width, make sure it's ADA compliant, to see if they would be able to handle such a use.
So those decisions that we previously made, where we are not widening sidewalks, for example, on Oregon, South Oregon, would really not work for this, correct? Because they chose, or we elected not to widen those sidewalks, is that right?
I would believe so, yes. I would defer to Public Works Director Robbie, but.
Yeah, I believe those sidewalks, as we were directed to reconstruct them, and the paved terraces that we were directed not to install would probably preclude much of Oregon Street from sidewalk cafes.
Unfortunate. Thank you.
I see no further discussion. Would you please take the roll?
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Ordinance 18-272. Approve extending the closure of intersection of West 9th Avenue, Oregon Street. Staff recommends waiving the rules and adopting on first reading. Councilman Peck, I see your light is on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move to make a motion to waive the rules and adopt on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Back to ordinance 18-272, approve extending the closure of intersection of West 9th Avenue, Oregon Street. Pam, did anyone register to speak to this?
No one registered.
Bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Would you please take the roll?
Pack,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Now we have a pending resolution, which is Resolution 18-273. Approve installation of new sidewalks, Gibson Court, south side from Fond du Lac Road to 170 feet east of Fond du Lac Road. Did anyone sign to speak to this pending resolution?
Yes. Rod Green and Kelly Dukacek, 2816 Fond du Lac Road.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for both an opportunity to talk to you again tonight. We've been here 2 weeks ago talking with you, and also thank you for looking into the issues that we brought up last time. I know that you did look into a resolution that was adopted in 2004, where when Gibson Court was built as part of that Stony Beach West subdivision, the grading and gravel and grading had been waived for the property owners on either side, as there was no benefit for them, and it was essentially a driveway for the subdevelopment. It does strike me that a resolution in 2007 had not been looked at, and my apologies for, I suppose I brought that to your attention a little later than you were prepared for. But I would point out that in 2007 resolution, I think it is 07115, which I did forward to the council, did waive special assessment for concrete paving for 2816 Fond du Lac Road, for 2782 Fond du Lac Road as well, to that depth of 169.76 feet at the time there. And that included laterals, sewer, water, and so on. As well as part of that resolution, my apologies, and what I sent to you, I'd highlighted the wrong note. Rather than highlighting point 5, I'd highlighted point 6. Point 5 on that resolution, 07115, states that the assessments for all projects included in said report hereby combined as a single assessment, but any interested party owner shall be entitled to object to each assessment separately. or both assessments jointly for any purpose or purposes. And again, the pavement of Gibson Court, that street was waived for both our house at 2816 and 2782 on the basis that no benefit was accrued to those homeowners. I do want to say I'm not someone who objects to sidewalks. I'm a recent arrival in Oshkosh. I've only been living here 5 years. I'm a pesky foreigner from Canada. And one of the things that I've lamented is the lack of places for me to go for a walk, at least in my neighborhood. But there has been a dramatic transformation of the land that my wife bought. And the sidewalk, just as Gibson Court provides an ingress and egress for the 12 houses that are back there in the subdevelopment, so does that sidewalk. It's not there for us. It does represent a certain level of seasonal hardship, as I'm sure we were all experiencing about 4 or 6 weeks ago. We bought our first snowblower, because up till then I'd been happy to shovel it, but I'm not looking forward to shoveling 170 feet of sidewalk. The fact of the matter is, we would rather that we did not have to deal with a sidewalk, with the loss of land, with the potential danger to our trees. However, I understand the need for one, the desire for one. I understand the point of one. And all we're really asking is that the intent of that resolution 07115 be honored here as well, and that the costs related to this improvement should not be incurred by us. And in an ideal world, it would be done with sensitivity to the trees that are currently there along that side of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the council. Oh. Were you both going to speak?
Hi, I just wanted to thank you again for taking some time to consider this. And as my husband said, we are not opposed to sidewalks. We like to walk. We are walkers. But everything he said. And I'm just here if you have questions.
Bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Discussion.
Second.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming forward. Thank you for coming forward. I'm not used to being on this side, sorry. With this information and the detailed email that you sent, it looks like you guys really did a lot of homework there. We also had received some additional items from staff since that time, since we did move this out. I guess I can appreciate what the expectation was in that time frame. And thank you for acknowledging the benefit of sidewalks. But the loss of land, Mr. Robbie, you may be able to address this. There is actual right-of-way that is on each city, each property within the city, correct? It's just whether or not it's
Yes, the
paved in
sidewalk will be
sidewalk.
installed in the public right-of-way, so there would be no
public right-of-way.
loss of land.
So it's, I mean, while it would be obviously impervious surface, it's not losing land, it's already public right-of-way designated. And I guess to that end, you know, you had indicated in your email that there was no notification that there would be sidewalks coming forward. However, in 2011, the city did pass our bike and pedestrian plan. And amongst that plan, we do have highly encourage sidewalks being installed throughout the city for connectivity. So in looking at land use and the benefit for the general health, welfare, and safety of our general public, while you may have understood at that time that it was not a benefit to you, given that we are trying to promote a walkable community, you know, it is believed that there is benefit to all, and that there is at least some derivative benefit there, as well as for your neighbors and children that may be accessing the Fond du Lac Avenue south side current. And it appears that, I did drive out there, it does appear that most of those connections have been made in that loop on the inside of the circle, yes, but not necessarily the outside of the circle. So you guys are unfortunately the missing link. So I will be supporting this moving forward. Thanks.
I see no other councilman wishing to speak to this resolution, pending resolution. Would you please take the roll?
Peck.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Mugrower.
Aye.
Rousey.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
We have one new resolution, which is 18-274, approve city center corridors plan for 9th Avenue and South Park Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval. Pam,
No one is registered.
I would like a motion and a second from the council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilman Herman.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it looks like Mr. Davis is coming up, and one of our other planners are coming. You guys want to just kind of give a highlight of what this plan is encompassing and what you're hoping to accomplish by us approving the plan for 9th and South Park Avenue?
Yes, if you recall, we started a Central City investment strategy, and part of the public input for that process identified the needs to improve those two corridors to the Central City on South Park and 9th. So we expanded the scope of that study, and this is the result, in that it is an attempt to improve the connection, the appearance, the conditions of those two corridors that lead to the Central City. We all recognize the need to improve the Central City, and this is a piece of that, say, puzzle to put it together in the entire community.
Okay. For short term, what are some of the projects you're looking at? Are they CIP projects? Are they projects we will be working with citizens on, neighborhood associations? Where do you kind of think it's going to go?
Yes to all those. Implementation will include the capital improvement program because there's some investments in public right-of-way. There'll be private properties that would be included for appearances and improvements and upgrades to the housing stock. And the neighborhood associations, I can say Sacred Heart is one of those recent neighborhood associations that adjoins the corridor on 9th, and we're expecting more neighborhood associations on those corridors as time goes by, and we want to work with them very closely.
Okay, and by approving this plan, I know we've had a lot of public input meetings already, and I've been involved in some of them. We'll continue to, as we do stretches of this plan, we'll continue to have other meetings, other.
Yes. Planners are good at having a lot of public meetings.
Well, public input is
Yeah.
huge, because we found through POCO that we don't get a lot of citizen participation, and we're using that study quite a bit, and I think we need a lot more public input and a lot of public discussion, because, again, we're using taxpayer dollars to fund these things, and so I think citizen engagement is huge, and I know they sometimes go long and take a lot of meetings, but I think it's an important piece to the puzzle, so I'm excited to support it, and thank you.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Davis, so in the memo, or it looks like Darren's memo, the fiscal impact, it says that the approval of the plan itself will not have a fiscal impact, but implementing those specific items will have like a case by case. However, I guess I'm thinking that when we did the corridor study, we looked at 9th and South Park, but at that time, we weren't dealing with Oshkosh Avenue in terms of that as another corridor, correct?
Correct.
So being that we are now kind of needing to move some of those things in from Oshkosh Ave, wouldn't that have like an opportunity cost in terms of these two, or at least an effect on our CIP with what we're doing there, bumping it up? Wouldn't that kind of knock some of these things down?
It's interesting you mentioned Oshkosh Ave, because that basically leapfrogged, in my mind, what we were working on with 9th and South Park, in that we had an immediate project and we hired the engineers and the traffic analysis to be done, and they came up with specific cost estimates. We haven't gotten to that point on 9th and South Park, except on a very, say, 30,000 foot level at this point. So you're exactly right. We would have to take that next step and do more research into the design and cost estimating for some of these improvements. And that will be part of the capital improvement programming that Mr. Herman referred to.
Sure, thanks.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I kind of follow up on Councilmember Herman's comment about, public education and involvement. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's a two-way street. Yes, we want to engage the public, and we will do everything we can to engage the public. But it's also incumbent upon the public to engage with the city. We can schedule every meeting possible. We could schedule meetings every day, every night, every hour. If the citizens decide not to participate in that, that is upon them. It is not upon us. I am all for citizen engagement and the city reaching out for citizen engagement. But as I indicated, it is a two-way street, and we need to remember that. Same thing as voting. It's kind of your ticket to participate in this system. So, participate in it. It is your right, and you should take advantage of it. Thank you.
All right, I see no other council members wishing to speak. Would you please take the roll?
Peck,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next on the agenda is council discussion, direction to city manager, and future agenda items. A is Act 317 rental inspection. You're looking for a date and a time to update us.
No, we're not looking at a specific date and time at this point because staff is still going through all of the new rules and regulations. We're purposely putting TBD so that we can come back to you. Hopefully the next meeting, maybe we can set a date. That's what we're hoping, but we know that we're not going to have anything ready for you of any substance until after June 1st. I think in the newsletter last week, we talked about how one of the other impacts that had nothing to do with rental inspection had to do with fees for property maintenance charges that we have. That was also impacted by Act 317. So we're taking a look at the entire piece of legislation now to see where some of these other rules have changed. So we want to make sure that we're not missing anything. And sometimes there's things that are snuck in there that we're totally unaware of. And that was one of those things that we just didn't pay as much attention to. So now that it's adopted, we have to take a look at and see what the impact is on us. So we'll have that TBD until we're ready to set a date. But we want to make sure we're ready for you.
And I think the word snuck is very appropriate with this, Madison. B is Oshkosh Area School District, in parentheses OASD. It was the City of Oshkosh Transportation Working Group. The first meeting was on May 2nd. Is there an update or?
I was not present, but I
Nor was
understand
I.
that Deputy Mayor Palmieri was, so she may want to report on it. Mr. Collins talked to me a little bit about it. Sounds like you're going to be bringing it up at the joint workshop with the school board, but that's about all I know at this point. Mr. Peschel did contact me, and I'm going to be meeting with him. He reached out to me, so I'll be meeting with him.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I did attend that working group, and yes, Mr. Collins was there. There was actually quite a number of people in attendance, probably at least like 12 or so, I would say. Social workers, school board representatives, citizens, and we had staff as well. And it was an interesting workshop. There was a pretty full agenda. It went a full 2 hours, probably closer to 2.5, all said and done. And so there are some like meaty things to really cover in that joint workshop. So I would definitely encourage council members that are available to take part in that. There are a number of, I guess, brainstorming things that are coming out of that. But some of the costs and things that were discussed, there's like a $50,000 gap as we saw before in terms of being able to provide that. The question is whether or not
school board or city or both or other entities will be involved in, or whether council will even, consider that. So that's really all I can report at this point.
Deputy, Councilman Herman.
Thank you. Just a question to the deputy mayor. Were you the only council member that attended? Okay, because I was under the impression that Councilmember Krause was going to be a member of that board. They had asked for 2 council members to attend, and that's why I did not attend, because I knew that he had reached out and mentioned he was interested and you were interested. But if we don't have enough council members, I can always get back on the meeting. But they had, I know school board member Peschel only wanted 2 council members, so we didn't have some quorum issues and some other issues as the meetings moved along, so.
Yeah, I was planning on attending, but we had a conflict of interest that day with a family issue.
So I guess I'm just reaching out to make sure we have our 2 council members attending those meetings.
As a precaution, we're noticing it.
Yeah,
So that
okay.
if 3 of you show up, you're going to be okay.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Now, the future workshops, we have workshop with Oshkosh Area School District. That is Wednesday, May 23rd, at the Oshkosh Area School District Administrative Building at 215 South Eagle Street. That will begin at 6 o'clock. Under future workshops, B, Strategic Planning Workshop, June 21st and July 19th, from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and the location is to be determined.
Yes.
Everyone has it on their calendar. C is first budget.
Mayor. Ms. Allison.
Oh.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let you know, unfortunately, I'm out of state that week, and I will not be able to attend the June 21st all-day workshop. Oops.
Okay, thank you. First budget workshop is July 25th at 5 p.m. in room 404. Is that on everyone's calendar? D, a council workshop on public works contracts, July 31, 5 p.m., room 404. So mark your calendars, we have a somewhat busy summer. And then Polco discussion on citizen participation, Councilman Herman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring this as kind of a discussion item. I guess maybe it's my personal beef, I guess. I'm unhappy with the use of POCO and how we're using it and how it's being presented back to our boards and commissions. Because from at least, and I'm using some of the information provided by the Oshkosh Herald, but also some of the boards and commissions that I serve on, that we seem to be taking that survey 110% of what the survey says, and when you find out that participation side of it is very minimal. And that's a concern of mine. With the golf course proposal, we had 2% of the population, and yet they could tell us that that's what the 66,000 citizens of Oshkosh wanted. To Councilmember Peck's comment, it's up to citizens to participate, whether it's an online survey or it's public meetings, things like that. Then in the May 3rd, dealing with Rouge Park, which will be coming up to the Parks Board and eventually the council. I'm just, again, I was not at the meeting. I was out of town, unable to make it, but it sounded like that 2 previous meeting notices that the citizens weren't aware that we had POCO survey out there and a question was being asked about lights. So did the people that answered the survey even live in the Rouge area? So I just have a concern. I don't know if any other council members have a concern. I'm registered, but I haven't got, I had to search out to get notified, I guess. Maybe I didn't register quite right. But I didn't get notified about the Rouge survey until I kind of searched out POCO, clicked on to see what was ongoing or going. And there was this survey out there about the lights. And so I guess I'm thinking 2 things. One, we need to get more people registered to really, in my opinion, get an honest report. And second, when there's specific questions in a neighborhood, that neighborhood needs to be notified to get out there and maybe do the survey or whatever. We want all participants because it's a public park, so more people are going to use it, obviously, than the people that just live in that area. But at the same time, they're the ones affected by any decisions that may be made because they live adjacent to the park. So I don't know if any other council members have any comments or concerns, but it's one I have that I think we're starting, as good as it is, I think we've got to be cautious and careful not to rely on that so heavily. You know, I know that I looked at the agenda for the upcoming Parks Board meeting on Monday, and it's going to be brought up of what the survey showed, and I know that weighs in heavily on our members. So I'm just concerned. I thought I'd voice a little bit of an opinion that I'd like, because how many, Mr. Roloff, you can maybe tell us how many people are registered currently?
There are over 1,000 people registered under Polco. I know the number's higher than that, but I know for sure it's over 1,000. We had over 1,000 people respond just to the golf survey. Mr. Mastronardi, PhD in statistical analysis, and a couple of things, because you raise some very good valid points that I think we need to make sure everybody understands. But for a community our size, Mr. Mastronardi projects that if you got 1,000 registrants, you were in very good shape. I believe we can get at least 2,000, which improves the reliability. With respect to that, Mr. Mastronardi invited me to make a presentation at a Midwest Regional Meeting of City Managers, and one of the things we talked about was to avoid managing by surveys, because you don't want to do that. That is simply just one element of your decision-making process. There are times when you have to take a look at those survey results and maybe go against them based in your judgment as the elected officials. And I would encourage you to continue to use that. The intent of Polco is really to be one more tool. There are meetings we do all the great notices in the world, and no one shows up. And that is so frustrating, because we do value public input. Other times we get people very active. You've seen the room full, where people are yelling and hollering. And we certainly want that input as well. But the idea of Polco is just one tool, and I would continue to advise council to take every bit of input you get and factor it in and weigh it in terms of how you want to do that. We've got about 292 responses on the Rouge Park. It does have the ability to do some geocoding about where those folks live, but the more input we get, I think the better, and I don't want to overly rely on that. With that said, I will provide you with some information that the Polco folks did. We asked them to do some additional analysis, because one of the results in Rouge Park was pretty substantially in favor. Another one was virtually 50-50. And pretty much when you have a higher percentage, you've got a little more wiggle room in terms of the reliability factor. When you have 51-49, the reliability, you can't rely on that survey virtually at all, because that's a plus or minus 5%. You're already flipping one way or the other. So you have to take all of that information with a grain of salt. And I encourage you to keep bringing that up, because one day you're going to have to look at a survey, and you may decide in your own judgment, based on everything, the totality of what you've heard, that maybe you don't want to necessarily follow the survey results. And that's council's prerogative, and you will find yourself in a position one day with that. And I encourage you to vote your conscience and do what you feel is best in the interest of the community.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
All right, just following up on that then, Mr. Roloff. So in contrast to the 1,000 plus responses with Polco, how many responses do we typically get from the citizen survey that we've been using for how many years?
Thank you. We varied between 250 and 350 results. We got a similar response, and we'll be coming back in a few weeks. The presentation was just made last weekend before last. We got another 300 survey results this year. So we got more Polco responses than we did mail-in responses. But in the totality, we got over 600 responses, and that is a vast improvement. So our reliability factor is now at a point where we can say we've got, it's down to less than 5% of a statistical variance. And that's really, Professor Nolenberger had said it all along, Professor Larson, using different tools. I think she's achieved a greater than 95%. That's probably one of the first questions you want to ask her. I think she's going to come back with Mr. Fitzpatrick to make a presentation on the results of the survey. But they are improved, and that's really what we were shooting for.
But I guess my point is it was my understanding that we were adding Polco in as an adjunct supplement to that annual citizen survey, right?
Correct, and we did, and I believe it's gotten us over that threshold of 95% reliability that we were looking for.
Do we have, I believe we have in the past, but perhaps I'm mistaken, haven't we sent out mail-in type survey things also in perhaps like utility bills or other things of that nature as well?
We do, but the return on that investment is pretty poor. So we haven't done a lot of those mail-outs recently, and I think that's where, as we can improve our base of Polco subscribers, I think we do need to improve on the point that Mr. Herman pointed out. If you're a Polco subscriber and you aren't getting noticed, we want to make sure that that's happening. So I appreciate you mentioning that. That's something we got to make sure, because you can't get engaged if somebody doesn't poke every once in a while.
And I think most of the council members recognize too, and I would agree with Councilmember Herman, that, you know, we wouldn't necessarily rely specifically only on the Polco results, given the nature of, you know, somewhat of a digital divide, and maybe not all of, that's not representative of all of our demographic.
Okay, just one comment, having spent a lot of years in the marketing area where we did use market research extensively. It is a tool. And the biggest danger companies make is using it over and over until they get the answer they want. That is a mistake lots of companies make with great consistency. Councilmember Mugarauer.
Thank you. No, actually, I just wanted to say something very similar to what you said, Mr. Mayor, that it's just another tool. And if you rely on it too heavily, you're only going to get the answers you want to get. Which leads me to my next question, I guess, is the creation of the question themselves, and the purpose behind it. When we have a question we want to put out, are we deciding how that's worded, or is the Polco creator, the Polco administrator putting together that question? Because any question can be a push question. We can push a response any way we want, depending on how we ask the question. So making sure it's not a push poll is a high priority if you want to have any integrity within that poll.
That's something that's going to always be an issue that we're going to have to think and rethink, because Polco doesn't do that. That's our job to do that. But I think over time, I think we'll get better at that and ask the right questions. I would say that the citizen survey is probably pretty well honed. We've been doing it for 10 years now. But I would think that anybody could take a look at some of these surveys right now and say, well, you know, I think maybe we should have worded it a little bit differently. You know what? I don't think I can argue with anybody on that issue, and we're going to have to keep honing that and get better at that. We're developing, what we're asking is a policy on the use of Polco, so that we have at least a couple sets of eyes looking at something, so we just don't throw something out that could be a leading question. I mean, that's really what the concern is, you know, are you in favor of mom and apple pie? Of course you are. We want to make sure that it's a substantive question that people can answer.
And then, as well as, one thing I found, or at least that the results I was looking at, especially compared to the citizen survey that's mailed in or turned in at City Hall, Polco seems to have a better representation of our demographic, or at least a closer representation of our true demographics within our community. Maybe it's just because of the tech piece, you have it on your phone, or you're on your computer at work, whatever it is. But the turned in or mailed in piece seemed to be a very narrow segment of our community actually participating in that survey, where this one actually does reach a broader audience. So that's all I had on that.
Okay, next is citizen statements to council. Pam, has anyone registered to speak?
No one is registered.
Okay, then next we have council member announcements and statements, and that would be me. Are you ready, Jake? I'm ready. All right. I just want to talk briefly about an event we call Unity and Community. Last Saturday was its inauguration at the Leach Amphitheater. I've been involved with a lot of groups, a lot of committees. I have never worked with a greater bunch of people. This began as a discussion between myself and Sylvia Carey Butler at the university. What we wanted to do was bring the diverse community together, get to know each other, because diversity, the culture of the city is changing and changing rapidly, but we don't know each other. So we brought together a group considering the City of Oshkosh School District, University, DA's office, Hmong Service Center, amongst others. And we felt we wanted to introduce people to other cultures, their food, their dress, their music. So it was 4 hours of music, beginning 11 to 3. Different cultures showing their dance, their clothing. It was a free event, a lot of education for children. It's a group from the former Soviet Union. One complaint we did have was that there was too much food. People were just stuffed when they left. The weather couldn't have been better. We had a debriefing meeting today, and we're planning next year's event. The community support as far as the business community financial sponsors was great. A lot of volunteers, the Oshkosh North Communities Program, those kids were dynamite. They were hiding rocks all over the city to promote it. One thing, and we also did introduce the Lake Fly Art Project, and we had the citizens got to choose the winner. And one interesting thing, one of our committee members, his name was Mohammed, he works for Shell Oil. He lives here and in Iraq. And during the event, as we're setting up and during the event, he was filming a lot of it, sending it to his friends in Iraq, London, showing the mayor and the chief of police. We're out there working. There are no guards. There's no security. We're just out there working. He couldn't wait to tell his fellow countrymen, this is how America works. This is how Oshkosh, Wisconsin works. So I'm just proud of all the people I work with. I encourage, when we get going next year, if you want to volunteer, get in the committee, let me know. But it was a fun event. So I thank everyone. Mark, you were there helping.
It was a lot of fun.
Did you get enough food?
Yeah, we got plenty of food, but the groups that basically made the food for free and provided to the public at no cost was very nice touch. Gave everybody an opportunity to sample some interesting food.
And great kid event. There were kids all over the place. It's just a great kids event. So again, thank you everyone for your support, your help, and we're all replanning next year. So thank you. Now, Mark, it's your turn. City Manager, announcements and statements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report about Oshkosh Corporation information is in your agenda packet. Tentatively, June 11th looks to be a date that they're shooting for groundbreaking. If that gets firmed up, we'll let you know, but it's in that ballpark area, so we're excited about that. Continuing with the archaeological studies, and we're bringing in the Menominees and the Ho chunks as needed. Should we find something, there were some things that were found this week, bringing them in, going over those issues. And we'll get that report is delayed a week, so you'll be getting that next week. And then, so unless you have any questions, the other item that I have in there is saving the date, transload facility, June 13th at 3 p.m. over at the transload facility. Council members had asked about doing a tour of a transload facility. And we have found some that we can take you to, but it will be an all-day event. The closest one is really near Rockford, Illinois. So the offer's out there. We're certainly happy to take you there. But maybe we wait until after we see the one here to get an idea of how it's going to work here. But I think the concerns that are there are legitimate. The concerns that you were concerned about when the non-transload facility is over at the end of Allerton Drive, that clearly was an issue, but the proximity, I think you'll be able to see what we have. And then if you want to go to Rockford, we can plan a day trip for that, but it would take a whole day.
That seriously is the closest one?
Yeah, this will be the only publicly owned transload facility in the state of Wisconsin.
Good for us.
So yeah, this is
another first.
Yeah, it's really, I don't think you're going to understand the general public won't understand the real value of this until it really gets up and running, because there will be economic activity going through that site that has not been there before. And even though we're not manufacturing anything at that location, the economic activity is going to be significant.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Mark, just following up back on the Oshkosh Corporation update. So in the staff memo, it talks about the WIS DNR grant for the Riverwalk submitted May 1st of this year. Do we have an idea, and that's for the I-41 Tribal Heritage section to the Oshkosh Corp site, and then we also submitted another grant for transportation assistance for the Riverwalk extension from Pinocqua through Rainbow Park. Do we have an idea of when we might know on that WIS DNR grant and when that Riverwalk construction piece of it would begin?
You asked long enough for Mr. Davis to walk up here, so I'm going to let Mr. Davis answer that question for you.
The answer to the questions is Wisconsin DNR grant that went in May 1st is actually from the Tribal Heritage to Oshkosh Corp, but all the way to Pinocqua. So we expanded the scope of the project to try to leverage more grant dollars that we think are available, and that would be constructed in 2019.
Okay, thank you.
We won't hear about it until the end of summer, beginning of fall.
That's all I have,
With-
Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.